We see Lara Sue hitting legionnaires while wishing she didn't have to hide her chaos powers. Sonic eventually reunites with Bunny, going to her by just pushing aside a curtain. That was fast. While Sonic was searching, Sly found a UFO to fly in. It's weird that it doesn't have a dome over it to protect the people inside it in case it crashes. Rick's UFO made more sense. Sonic's impressed by Sly and says he might have to change his opinion of him that he didn't show and mistreat him earlier. Bunny tells her uncle that they're not family anymore because he wanted to remove her limbs, even though he clearly told her that an explosion made them so injured that she needed amputation anyways. He was clearly well-intentioned. Sonic gets to do a lot of talking while standing still and carrying Bunny, with nobody trying to stop him. The Baron tells his legionnaires to let them go, so now he isn't a cartoon villain. Why'd he kidnap her then? I can understand him legionizing her to make her able to fight Eggman again, but it should have been written to say that. Then he'd be a well-intentioned extremist. He could give them the idea to remove her bombs with nanites instead of just freaking her out. Sally gets threatened by a legionnaire and uses her ring blades as a shield. Thankfully, she's apologetic when she notices that apparently someone got caught in an explosion. She gets grabbed by someone and headbutts him, and then says ow and asks just how legionized the guy is. Wouldn't the headbutt knock her out? He's a robot, so yeah. He says he set up an energy field to disable the laser blades of hers. It sure took a while to activate. He threatens to break her spine and roboticize Bunny completely. She thanks him for telling her that he's a robot. Because he just had to brag about it, she's able to kill him with a cane with no guilt. Sure is lucky that apparently just now there are robots like him in the Dell units. Usually it's nothing but legionnaires, so I'm not sure this would actually happen. Someone cries in front of her asking her not to kill her. She reminds me of Cream. Sally says that he was just a bad guy robot, talking sort of baby talk, and she hugs her and says she's a cute person she doesn't want to hurt. So because she was distracted, she gets threatened with a gun. But then the Legionnaires act like actual people who are actually forced to serve Eggman, for a change. And not just goons to make me wish they were Robians, because that makes better sense, and at least Robians don't talk as much, and at least Robians don't talk like arrogant jerks. One of them tells Sally to just get out of here already, because he never wanted to fight to begin with. It makes sense that they'd sympathize with Sally because she's being so nice. It's funny that one of the Legionnaires off screen is named Ted of all things. It sounds harmless. So Sly flies the UFO, as I wonder why he's so good at it on the first try. Lara says to keep it steady since they have two patients hidden on board. Sonic paces back and forth, asking where they are, and Sally fortunately reminds him that since he carried the girls here, of course they got home early. She says they should be back any minute. Jeffrey shows up and says that Nicole updated them on the situation, and he brought help for their friends. I just wish he was possessed by Ixis so I wouldn't be torn out of the story being reminded that this isn't a continuation of Archie Sonic all the way. And yet I'm still being reminded of the elements of the Mecha Sally arc. There's a lot of elements of it that I don't like. Nagas has been requesting their presence. Sally says they'll only do it after delivering their friends back to the hospital. And as I've noticed for some time, Antoine's face is completely bandaged, which wasn't the case in Archie for a reason. How would he be able to breathe? That's dumb. Where's the oxygen mask? Sally asks Julie Sue to take Sly and Carmelita on a tour of the castle for new clothes while she helps her friends. She says she's made them honorary Secret Service members, just like that. So she can just ask for those uniforms. That's easy. Finally, her being the princess is being taken advantage of. She gets special privileges after all. Lara Sue says she knows the castle like the back of her hand from blueprints. I feel sorry for Six here, telling people they're being spied on as she speaks to a megaphone, because she's embarrassing herself. It only makes sense if she said that during the whole hysteria with Nicole, who was able to hear all of the criticism people gave her for being brainwashed by the Iron Queen earlier. Of course Styx would still be paranoid of Nicole. Anyways, after Carmelita lampshades in her head that the people of the city aren't wearing enough clothes, and then realizes that being a tomboy over here means wearing less clothing, like Julie, I really wish I knew why she was asking Lara Sue how she could have possibly known what she knows. Too bad the proposition that Jeffrey had for Sally was completely skipped past. I'm just confused now. Bunny's told that all 4 of her limbs have shattered bones, so she's looking at a very long and painful rehabilitation, with amputation still being a high possibility. Why isn't he just immediately saying, just get Chuck to partially roboticize them? I mean, come on, why aren't they thinking with logic instead of dumb emotion? It's not like she's immune to roboticization. She wasn't deroboticized by the Dem. Bunny insists that her days as a freedom fighter are over, and she's told she'll always be a part of the team. Her not being legionized after all isn't Archie Sonic. It's not going off what Archie Sonic was gonna do. A natural, satisfying continuation would be her being legionized and Sonic carrying her to the city, and then they would remove her bombs. What's the point if she's just injured from an injury she never got instead? She wore the poncho in Archie Sonic specifically because they didn't have her legionized design finalized yet. I'm glad it's trying to go off his continuity a little, but it's only doing so to humor us with wrapping up plot threads. It's still an alternate universe, not a believable continuation. This way of wrapping things up won't be taken seriously anyways. Instead of resolving the plot thread with Bunny, the comic lies to us that it never happened in the first place. Rotor accidentally breaks down the door when going into the room and says that he's still getting used to his new strength. He looks more muscular, like Reboot Rotor. At least his head is shaped kinda right instead of looking awful. I always hated how his head was shaped in late Archie. Carmelita thanks someone for delivering her uniforms. Why do they have multiple different options to choose from? I guess they're just different size options. Julie asks why she has to leave so they can change. Julie then punches the wall and cracks it for some reason. I didn't know she was that strong. She's badass and she asks her if she's from the future. That doesn't mean she has to be mean to her. Suddenly it cuts to detached narration from Rotor. After he saw what happened to Bunny, he goes into the long train of thought he had, which makes him seem smart. At first he was thinking of building new robot parts for Bunny, the obvious idea. But then he remembered how he had built a nanite suit for his injured back. He changed his focus into nanites, only to get distracted again when he realized that the robotic nanites wouldn't be able to fix their broken bodies. What makes him think that again? He should explain himself. Can't Nicole summon any material with the nanites? She can create castles. Surely she could create new bones to replace the shattered bone and new flesh with Bunny's DNA if she could create castles with the nanites. But no, that required him to think outside the box. Though it was thinking outside the box that even considered using nanites in the first place. Already this is more creativity than the actual comic would have. But seriously, you'd think he'd be able to send nanites into them to speed up their own natural healing process. Like better versions of whatever's healing their broken bones. Instead he had a breakthrough, modifying a bunch of nanites that could work as synthetic organic material. They could not only support the body, but insert themselves into the body to replace it as well. They could have done that earlier. He first had to test it, and chose himself and his bad back as a guinea pig. I hope Archie Sonic Online fixes his bad back. It tried to fix some of the damage that Flint did to the comic if he didn't have a bad back anymore. It is braver and nicer of him to test it on himself and not someone else. In his haste, he only gave the instructions of fixing himself. It fixed his back, but much more, making himself into muscular Reboot Rotor, but without the stupid goggles. Flint said that the reboot only pushed the fast forward button on what he planned to do to Archie anyways. So it makes sense that they would have reboot elements if they were going to have them in the comic anyways, like the ring blades. So I love seeing this plot development for Rotor. Not only does it make him more competent, but it's a good explanation for how Reboot Rotor would have naturally progressed into being more muscular. The nanites have fused into his body as a part of him, and somehow you can't tell the difference between the nanites and the non-nanites anymore. And they can't change shape anymore, but made him more strong and durable. He was a walrus after all, so I always thought it was weird that he wasn't a tough guy. So this is kinda long overdue. It's still gonna be hard to get used to though. He says that while the change was extreme in his case, he could use the nanites to heal Bunny and Antoine over time. That's better than using a machine on Antoine's head that would make him go crazy like the King did. I really hope they find a good excuse to not have him go crazy. Well, crazy is an exaggeration, but still. Meanwhile, Julie Sue had an easy time figuring out the layers from the future, because she already knows Silver exists, and she showed up looking for Sally's friends immediately, and knows intimate details she shouldn't. Such as, she's also a terrible liar. She also has the common sense to realize that when she looks at her face, and our eyes, her gut tells her that she's trying to do good. And while she has certain theories, she won't pry. So she knows she's her daughter? I mean, she is red and pink and knows Sally's friends. Who else would she be? But I'd rather her have a thought bubble confirming that. Like, she could reflect on the fact that Lara clearly almost called her mom. And she said, our eyes. She says she should come clean to the others so they can help her with her real mission. And she almost calls Julie Sue mom right there. I'm glad Sonic tells Rotor, if the nanites buffed up your body, what's with the glasses? Yeah, why does Chuck wear glasses anyways? You'd think someone smart enough to invent a roboticizer like it was nothing could have perfected his vision. But I can understand him not caring enough to do so if he's too happy and busy with building useful freedom fighter things. Why would he waste time with a vanity project instead? Rotor says that the glasses are just a plastic decoration, and he got used to wearing the glasses, so he doesn't want to lose them. He says the nanites gave him perfect vision. I don't know why Carmelita won't insist on wearing pants anyways, just because the uniform doesn't have any. I'm glad Sly looks a bit more like his old self again, with a blue hat. What's the point of having Johnny and Techno show up if they're just gonna be silent cameos? Techno was in issue 134, and there was the same problem. Either use the character or don't. It's pretty dark that Bunny finds the process painful. It was already bad enough that it looked creepy that the nanites were going to Rotor in the first place. Rotor says that he passed out from the pain when he did it to himself. Wait, if he knows it'll be painful, why didn't he hire a guy to give her proper anesthesia? Wasn't that common sense? Anyways, Jeffrey goes to Sly and says that Sally agreed to their plan, which she'll need them for. Wasn't she incredulous at the plan? Bunny wakes up, wondering why her hand has a glove on it. I'm wondering that too, because the only reason the SatM characters all had gloves in the reboot was because they decided to change their designs to be more Sonic game character-like. They don't have to do that in a fan comic. Obviously, wearing gloves would be bad because, there's a reason the characters don't wear gloves. It's because wearing gloves makes it harder to interact with stuff, because you can't feel things as well through gloves. Her limbs are now encased in nanites linked to her mind, and she has to keep a clear and collected mind to make sure they operate correctly, because dark and edgy bullshit. Real limbs don't do that, and nanobots are supposed to be superior. It does something lighthearted, and it would be cool that she was made more competent again. But it doesn't feel as much like an upgrade if it just immediately tries to offset that with some stupid bullshit. All it looks like to me is that she got a regular cyborg limbs back. She looks cool. I'm so glad she has a cowboy hat and long hair like this. She doesn't look exactly like Reboot Bunny. As if that wasn't creepy enough, Rotor says that she's limited on what she can wear, because they don't want the nanites touching clothing and trying to merge them into her fur. By that logic, wouldn't they try to merge with Antoine or whatever if they touched their robotic limbs at all? Isn't Nicole's hologram form made of nanites? Nobody has that problem when they touch her pseudo-organic form. Again, it's just offsetting what would normally be a lighthearted and awesome upgrade for Bunny, so it doesn't feel as much like she's back and better than ever. Bunny flies out of the window saying it's good to be back, as I look forward to seeing her like this in Archie Sonic Online, where she won't have to contend with these problems. Rotor says he had lessons ready to go for using the nanites. But no, Bunny crashes into a tree, so she's not a natural. Why? She just started flying just like she always did. Why would the instructions be different? She took her mind off the thrusters for 1 second and they went out of control. That's dumb. Couldn't this get her killed? Rotor would be more talented than that. It turns out they've infused and wrapped Antoine in nanite bandages, which will fix his body over time. But the coma's another matter, because nonsensical, dark and edgy writing. Wouldn't it be common sense that if his body is fixed, His coma would be fixed because he would be woken up because his brain is a part of his body.